Hello, this story is meant for not just students but educationists, policymakers, governments, academicians and India's education ecosystem. Because what we are about to talk about, we tracked the last 30 years toppers of JEE Main and JEE Advanced. And JEE Advanced started coming in 2013, since that, before that was JEE Main. And when we started tracking all the JEE toppers of this country since 1990, what emerged is a story that is important for the country, interesting for many of you possibly, but very important for the country. We seem to be exporting the best minds that India has through the IIT ecosystem abroad. And I'll talk about the data as I move along. It's very, very interesting of how some students choose their pathways, choose their careers and moved ahead. It also is very pertinent to know how we're going to deal with this problem as we move along, and that's a solution that we leave it to the government and the policymakers. But very important for us to understand, how did the students create their own pathway, chart their own pathway, and how did they move ahead, right? The first thing is the brain drain paradox that we're talking of. And two, the very clear shift. The 90s to 2000s students who topped the JEE mains chose academia over capital, which means they were not into quant trading and working in Jane Street and so on and so forth. But since 2001, we actually saw most of these people who, even after they getting into IIT also, started choosing jobs which are not into academia and research and professorship and teaching, but into something else, which is largely working for large multinational companies into quant trading, into quantitative finance, working with Jane Street and those kind of investment banks or multinational banks. So the choice that students were making earlier and the choice that students are making now is also dramatically different depending on how the money flows happen. The third thing is, some of them are also very good outliers. And these outliers, what did they do? They chose impact over income. They did not choose money. They actually chose impact. So they started investing themselves in creating institutions or working for institutions which actually create impact on social norms. So what we're going to talk about is all the 31 toppers that we have since 1990. We went up to 2020 because after that, even if a student passes, graduates and all, the career path is only 1 year, 2 year, and I don't want to judge them so early, right? It's not that we're judging any of these 31 years for that matter. It's just that it is too early for us to make a assessment of the choices that student made just for 1 year or 2 years. So what we did was we tracked the students who topped the JEE charts in 1990 onwards for the last 31 years till 2020. And what I'm about to present to you is that data. And at the end of it, keep watching me. At the end of it, I'll also tell you how some of the very pertinent points are very important for us in terms of how the choices were made and how are they impacting us, each of us, and the numbers of how many people choose academia, how many people choose companies, how many people went out of the country, and how many people are working within the country, how many people are working for multinationals outside while not working for the Indian companies, and how many people chose impact over income. All this data I'm going to present to you at the end of these things. First, listen to me for how the toppers, the top 30 toppers actually behaved 1990 onwards. How did they behave? How did they chart out the plan, and what are they doing currently? Right. The first one is 1990 topper. The 1990 topper was Ashish Goel. He got into IIT Kanpur, chose btech CSE, right? And later he moved on to Stanford University for his PG. He became a PhD in computer science from Stanford University, and right now he's a professor in USA, which means he's working outside of India. He's an academician, 1990, teaching at Stanford. The second one was Reena Panigrahi. He chose again, he studied from IIT Bombay. He did btech CSE, moved to Stanford University after that. Like Ashish, she also moved to Stanford University. He did PhD in computer sciences and right now works in Google and as a research scientist and based out of India in USA. The third one is Anil Kumar Ruya. He also again chose IIT Bombay, chose btech CSE, then moved for his masters to Rutgers University. He did his MS computer science from there, works at Microsoft, and he's outside of India in USA. The fourth one is Prasoon Kumar. He studied IIT Kanpur. He also did btech CSE, and he's right now a consultant and he's based out of India. So the first person in the top 4 who is right now based in India. Then 1994, we actually have Kamesh Munagala, who topped the JEE examination, went to IIT Bombay, did btech CSE. From there, he did his masters from Stanford University and also did PhD in computer sciences from there. And right now, he's working at Duke University as a professor in USA. So he's based outside of India in USA as a professor, which means he's in academia. Then in 1995 we have Subhash Khote. Subhash Khote, moved to IIT Bombay. From there he actually left the place, by the way, and then moved on to another university in USA, which is MIT in my opinion. He's right now a professor in USA at NYU, New York University. And Subhash Khote has a very interesting story, which I'll talk about it much later. It's very important for us to understand the choices that the students made and the journeys that they had, and how they actually carved out a niche for themselves while doing all these things. In 1996, JEE Topper was Prasanna Ganesan. He chose IIT Madras, did his btech CSE. From there he did his masters from Stanford University again. He also finished his PhD in computer sciences, and he's right now in USA as a CTO and a board member of a company called Machinify, right? Which means he's outside of India. Arvind Saraf, this also is a very interesting story which we'll talk about it much later. He graduated from IIT Kanpur as btech CSE, then went to MIT USA to do his MS in computer sciences and worked at Microsoft, and then came back to India, and I'll talk to you about his story. It's a very, very interesting story that you must hear. Then in 1998, the topper was Abhinav Kumar. He studied at, he moved out of India. He was a topper, but he chose MIT USA as his first port of call. He did his bachelor's of computer science from there. Then he moved to Harvard to pursue his master's, finished his PhD in mathematics, and he's right now a researcher in USA. In 1999, the topper was Vineet Goyal. He chose IIT Delhi. He obviously took btech computer sciences. Then masters he did in Carnegie Mellon. He did his PhD in operations research from Columbia University. He's right now a professor in Columbia University, and which means he's based outside of India and in USA. The 2000 topper was Nitin Gupta. He chose IIT Kanpur again, btech CSE of course, and later he did his masters from UC San Diego. And he did his PhD in bioinformatics also. And right now he's a professor in IIT Kanpur. And again, this also is a very interesting story that we'll talk about as we move along. Then in 2001, the topper was Arvind Tyagarajan. He chose IIT Madras. He later pursued his master's from MIT USA, finished his PhD in computer sciences, works with Google, and he's based outside of India. In 2002, the topper was Durgaram Chaudhary. He chose IIT Kanpur. He chose btech CSE of course, and right now he's working in Oracle in USA, and he's also the consulting member of the technical staff in Oracle. He's based outside of India. The 2003 topper was Shashank S. Dwivedi. He chose IIT Bombay. In fact, many people who choose, after 2007 only choose IIT Bombay. You'll get to know about that as we move along. In 2003, Shashank Dwivedi, he chose masters. He finished in MIT USA, and he works in Deutsche Bank in Mumbai. 2004 topper was Sushant Sachdeva. He chose IIT Bombay, btech CSE. He finished his masters from Princeton University, and he also did his PhD in theoretical computer sciences. He works with OpenAI. He's a member of the technical staff, and he's based in USA, which means he's outside of India. 2005 topper was Piyush Srivastava. He chose IIT Kanpur, and he then pursued his masters from University of California. He finished his PhD in computer sciences. He right now works at TIFR, which is Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Again, a very good opening. But he again chose impact, and he came back to India and he started working in TIFR. He's an associate professor there. In 2006, the topper was Raghu Mahajan. He chose IIT Delhi. He chose btech CSE, and then moved to Stanford University for his masters and finished his PhD in theoretical mathematical physics. Right? And he right now is in Bangalore. International Center of Theoretical Sciences is what he established, and he's working there. The 2007 topper was Achin Bansal. He chose IIT Bombay over everything else. He finished his btech CSE. After that, he did not do his masters as a seat at this point in time. He's right now working in Morgan Stanley in USA as an executive director. The 2008 topper was Srikanth Kashyap. He chose IIT Kanpur, btech CSE. And he right now is in Canada as a research associate algorithm in an organization called LIAFA Research, right, and based out of India. The 2009 topper was Nitin Jain. He chose IIT Delhi, btech CSE of course. And by the way, as you move along, a lot of these people haven't done their masters since 2007, 2005 onwards, and have moved on to something else and got onto a job, and that's where the thing is. The initial bunch was always into doing the master's research and joining academia. The later bunch is all about, they chose the job and the growth that comes with a career, and then moved on from there. So very clearly the choices have changed dramatically since 2000 onwards. That's what you can see here, right? So Nitin Jain got into as a software engineer in LSEN and Bangalore in India. Then in 2010 the topper was Anumala Jitendra Reddy. He chose IIT Bombay over everything else. He did PhD researcher in neuroinformatics, brain and AI research at ETH Zurich, right? And he's right now in research in Switzerland, which is based out of India, of course. Then you have Imbade Prithvi Tej. This is a very, very interesting story that all of you must know about. So we'll again talk about it when we close this presentation. He chose IIT Bombay. He took btech EEE. And then he's right now the chairman and managing director in government of Andhra Pradesh. I'll tell you about his story also, very interesting story. In 2012, the topper was Arpit Agarwal. Remember 2013, I think the JEE Advanced came in. Till then it was JEE and then something else. Arpit Agarwal, IIT Delhi again, btech CSE honors is what he did. Then he's right now working in the organization called Tower Research as a quantitative researcher in USA. 2013 topper was Pallerla Sai Sandeep Reddy. He chose IIT Bombay. He's a software engineer AI/ML in Microsoft in USA and outside of India. In 2014, the topper was Chitrang Murdia. He chose IIT Bombay. By the way, from here on, you'll see everyone choosing IIT Bombay only, unless you go abroad. And after that, he finished, he did his master's at University of Cambridge, and PhD in philosophy also he's done. And he's right now a postdoctoral researcher in USA in the University of Pennsylvania. 2015 topper was Satwat Jagwani. He again chose IIT Bombay, btech CSE. He pursued his master's in MIT USA. He right now works in USA in Cadence Design Systems as a software development engineer. The 2016 topper was Aman Bansal. He works in IIT Bombay. He chose btech CSE, of course. Then he pursued his master's from Stanford University, and he did his MS in computer sciences. He works at Wisdom AI as a founding ML engineer in USA. Sarvesh Mahatani was a topper in 2017. He chose IIT Bombay again, btech CSE. He works in Optiver, which is in Netherlands, as a quantitative trader. Pranav Goyal, again of 2018 topper, was the topper of 2018, as I said. He again chose IIT Bombay CSE. He works in Jane Street as quantitative trader, and he works out of Hong Kong. 2019 topper was Kartikeya Gupta. He chose IIT Bombay. He works in Samsung Electronics as intern at Samsung Research in South Korea, which is outside of India, of course. And the 2020 topper was Chirag Fowler. He chose MIT USA, so he did not choose any of the Indian colleges or any of the IITs. Moved to MIT USA. He pursued in MIT USA the undergrad and the postgrad, and he worked in CERN, which is one of the biggest projects that the world had seen, as scientific internship in Switzerland in Europe. So this is the top 31 toppers that we actually talked of from 1990 to 2020. So we're talking of 31 years is what we covered. Now the interesting story that you must look for, which is very, very important. What we did was, we now collated all this data trying to put some kind of a method in the madness in terms of how do you interpret these choices that they made, and how did the students make those kind of choices, and how many students are working in India. Because remember, we started this entire conversation about the brain drain paradox. How, are the best minds that India produces, are we actually producing them for India or from outside of India? Not that going out of India as a choice is a bad choice at all. But the important thing for us as a country, one is the individuals, but as a country, we should be very clear that this is what we're doing. This is the reason why we are producing these kind of people. We don't mind anything else. That's a choice that we as a country must make, right? So from that perspective, we wanted to understand how this entire, the career path and the journey of the career journey of these students does, and that is data that I'm about to present to you. Now, when we look at this data, there is one thing that emerges. Of the 31 people that we spoke about, 23 are working outside of India, 8 are working in India. And of these 8, also 5 are working for international companies in India. Only 3 are working for Indian companies within India. That's the first data point that you must know, that about 28 of them are working for foreign companies, of which 23 people are working outside of India. Now, that is very important for us to understand, that this is the pathway for a student who is studying at IIT. And this seems to be the clear case as we see it. And after 2007, most of the people always choose IIT Bombay over everything else. That's also another thing that's emerging very clearly, right? A couple of them here or there, but otherwise, since 2007, most of the choice that was done was IIT Bombay. The other thing that emerged very clearly is that before 2000, most of the people also did their post-graduation and are into academia or research, whereas post 2000, most of these people, in fact, more than half of the people did not even pursue their post-graduation, got onto a job and have risen up the ladder in the job itself. So it's a possibility that the need for further education is not needed, or the fact that the choices that students are making post 2000 is different as compared to pre 2000, right? And only around 1/4 remain in India, which is what worries us. Only a quarter of them, as I said, 75% of the people are domiciled outside of India, and only 25% of the people are domiciled in India. When you look at the choices that some of the students made, MIT is very, very right on top. 5 of these students chose MIT for a couple of them went straight from undergrad and all that, but 5 chose MIT USA. Stanford was chosen by 6 people, right? Carnegie Mellon was chosen by 1, ETH Zurich by 1, Harvard by 1, Princeton by 1, Rutgers by 1, UC San Diego by 1, University of California by 1, and University of Cambridge by 1. So you actually have the 17, 18 students, and the choice that they made is 6 for Stanford, 5 for MIT, and then you have 1 each for the other 6 or 7 universities that we spoke about. Of the choices that students made of where they're domiciled or where they're working, we talked of 23 students who are outside of India and about 8 being in India, right? So 55% or 17 of these students have chosen USA as their home. After passing out from an IIT in India, 17 of them have chosen IIT as a home. 8 of them are in India, 2 are in Switzerland, 1 in Canada, 1 in Netherlands, 1 in Hong Kong, and 1 in South Korea. So that's how it is. 55% of the students who IITs are producing, and 75% of them are based outside of India. Now, if you look at the period-wise shift, of how the students have made their choices of either working in India or outside of India, from 1999 to 2010, if you look at it, 7 of the 21 who graduated chose India, and 14 chose outside of India, right? Which means 33% chose India and 67% chose outside of India. But 2011 to 20, if you take the top, the 10 toppers that you have, only one chose India and 9 chose to be working outside of India. So again, you can see the shift. That earlier it was 33%, which has come down to 10% now, which means increasingly people, when they're given the better opportunity, will choose a better opportunity, whether it's outside of India or otherwise, right? And there's a very clear shift towards global migration over time, and which is what we're trying to explain here. So that's another trend that you must be very carefully looking at. Now, if you look at the toppers also, 16 of them chose IIT Bombay, 7 chose IIT Kanpur, and about 4 chose IIT Delhi, 2 chose IIT Madras, and 2 gave up everything that you have in India and chose MIT USA. So that's how the entire thing happened. IIT Bombay seems to be the most preferred one. In fact, post 2007, most of the students only chose IIT Bombay. It also explains how IIT Bombay conducted itself in terms of attracting the best students to choose them, because the kind of alumni donations that IIT Bombay has, it obviously has a huge advantage in terms of how it is favored. One, it's based in Bombay, and 2, the best kind of alumni donations have come in there. So there seems to be a natural traction towards IIT Bombay being the most preferred course for all toppers since 2007. But if you look at it over the 30 years, about more than half the students chose IIT Bombay, about 22%, 7 students chose IIT Kanpur, and 4 students chose IIT Delhi, and 2 of them actually have chosen MIT. They gave up their, they did not use the JEE rank and chose something else. Now, for higher studies, when you look at it, how are they preferring? Stanford is the most preferred one. They actually chose, in fact, this is one important thing that you must realize. Every student who got into an IIT and did his bachelor's, not a single student of them, if they wanted to pursue higher education, chose India to study here. They all chose wanting to study outside of India. Now that speaks volumes about our research capabilities, our institutions, our academic research institutions, and the academic growth that we give for people who actually want to pursue higher education in India. Every single student who is an IIT JEE topper, got into an IIT for bachelor's, has chosen outside of India to pursue their higher education. In fact, in all, about 19 or 20 students did higher education, and all of them chose to do it outside of India. 6 of them did it in Stanford, 5 did it in MIT, Carnegie Mellon was 1, ETH Zurich is 1, Harvard 1, Princeton 1, Rutgers University 1, UC San Diego 1, University of California 1, and University of Cambridge 1. Now that is a damning indictment of how good we are to retain our best talent to pursue masters and research within India. This is a damning indictment, because everyone who wants to do academic research also chooses outside of India. In fact, some of these people wanted to do it in India and also moved out in India. That's something that we'll talk about as we move along also, right? And Stanford and MIT together, take almost everything, and then you have everyone else coming in. Now, what is the career outcome that you have? If you look at the JEE toppers that we have, 13 people did a PhD and 6 of them did masters, which means 11 of them stuck with their bachelors only. So 11 of them, retained their bachelors and then moved on to a job. 6 of them moved to masters and 13 of them went to PhD also. And by the way, these 13, most of them, about 10 of the 13 of them, were the earlier batch of 1990 to 2000, because each of them did research and became a researcher also in one of these large companies possibly. And every PhD holder, this is another thing, every single PhD holder is based out of India. That's another indictment that you have, right? Now, if you look at the kind of profession that they chosen, of where they want to work, or what kind of work they want to conduct themselves on, 10 of them, of these 31, are in academia and research. In big tech companies, 7 of them are there. In the content finance, it's 6 of them are there. In startups and leadership, there are 3 of them. In interns early, there are 2 of them. Government 1, and the others are 2. But 10 of them are in research, and 7 of them are working on big tech, and 6 of them are in quantitative finance, which means trading and those kind of things. And then a couple of them are also into startups and all. So that again is another thing that you must work on. Now, the interesting story that you must all know about, and these are very interesting because it also tells you what a student would have gone through before they make those choices and how they have used the rank to decide for themselves, right? So when we look at that, some of the very interesting stories come out. For example, the 1995 topper, by the way, the first one is an extraordinary consideration of era's toppers didn't just enter academia, they shaped the entire field. Many of the 1990 to 2000 toppers, they shaped the entire field, and we'll talk about that also as we move along. Subhash Khote, who is a 1994 topper, is a Julius Silver Professor of Computer Science at NYU and is best known for proposing the unique games conjecture in 2002. Right? Now the most studied conjecture in theoretical computer sciences. He also has a lot of patents, if I'm not wrong. Sanjeev Arora, who graduated in 1986 and featured for was Khote's PhD supervisor. So what we have is Subhash Khote chose this, and his supervisor was Sanjeev Arora. Now Arora was of course is a topper in JEE Main in 1986, so much earlier. And he transferred to MIT after 2 years at IIT Kanpur. So he studied at IIT Kanpur for 2 years, then moved out of IIT Kanpur to MIT. And is now the Charles C. Fitzmaurice Professor of Computer Science at Princeton and founding director of Princeton Language and Intelligence, a unit devoted to the early large model study of AI models. So the 1986 and 1995 toppers are connected by one of the most celebrated advisor-student relationships in computer sciences history, because one was a mentor or a PhD supervisor and the other one was a student, and both of them have worked in this model which is devoted to the study of large AI models, which is very, very important in the current context. Now, you also have some very unusual paths taken by some people, like Arvind Saraf. We talked of Arvind Saraf earlier. He comes from a Marwadi family in Surat, and he didn't even start JEE prep until the 10th grade, which means what is sold by the coaching institutions to you that you must prepare for 3-5 years, he did not do that. He did it after class 10th, right? Saraf went to IIT Kanpur. From there he went to MIT. From there he went to Google India, and then in 2008 he quit Google India to co-found Swasth India. This is an NGO, a technology-powered healthcare NGO targeting India's poor. So this man chose impact over income. Great respect to him. And he found a company called Swasth India, which attracted one of the first VC investment made by late Sri Ratan Tata. So again, this man gave up everything, the best trajectory of work and money that you can give, and moved back to India after studying at MIT, founded Swasth India only for the India's poor, most underprivileged people in the country, to ensure that, and it's a global healthcare NGO based out of India, which attracted also VC investments from Sri Ratan Tata. Reena Panigrahi, I told you earlier, he topped JEE in 1991, going on to become a principal researcher at Microsoft Research and later Google Research. We also talked of Nitin Gupta, who topped in 2000. He made a dramatic pivot from CS to biology at UC San Diego, then returned to IIT Kanpur in 2014. So this man actually had a flourishing career outside of India, but he came back to IIT Kanpur in 2014 as a faculty member in biological sciences. Mind you, he did his masters and everything in UC San Diego because he pivoted from CS to biology, right? And one of the very few toppers to permanently return and build an academic career in India. And he also founded an institution or heads an institution, within IIT Kanpur. He heads a particular division out there, which is into research. The pattern, as I keep saying, has changed dramatically. Versus 2001 to 20, there's change. The 90s toppers overwhelmingly gravitated towards academia. 6 out of 11 are into academia, while the post-2000 cohort increasingly split towards big tech, finance, and startups, which obviously is the case as we see it at this point in time. Now, when you look at the 2000 to 2020 toppers, right, again it creates an interesting profile. For example, Satwat Jagwani, who topped in 2015, enrolled at IIT Bombay, but dropped out in 2017. So he did not finish his course there. Moved out of IIT Bombay, joined MIT, and he did pursue and finish his bachelor's and master's in computer science from MIT. Then you have Chitrang Murdia, who topped in 2014, joined btech CS at IIT Bombay, but dropped out 1 year later. So he joined there and then dropped out immediately within a year later to pursue a bachelor's in physics at MIT. So again, this man also gave up his position at IIT Bombay and moved out of India. There is one person, Imadit Prudvitej, who topped in 2011, who gave up all these things and pursued UPSC and became a civil servant and became an IAS officer. Because he chose again, he wanted to be a civil servant, possibly to serve the most underprivileged and serve the country in a sense. So he cracked the CSC and in 2017 with All India rank 24 in UPSC, and is now an assistant collector in Andhra Pradesh. Now look at Sarvesh Mehtani, who topped in 2017. He completed his btech in CS from IIT Bombay in 2021 and is now working in quantitative trader as Optiver in Amsterdam. So he's a quant trader. And then Arvind Tyagarajan completed his PhD from MIT, interned at Google and Yahoo, holds 42 patents, and is currently a research scientist at Amazon. He holds 42 patents. Pallerla Sai Sandeep Reddy, who topped in 2013, pursued a PhD in CS from MIT and later worked at American Express before joining Microsoft. And then, I told you again, there is a massive dominance of IIT Bombay. Almost every topper from 2007 onwards chose CS at IIT Bombay as their first destination, and two of them dropped out also and moved to MIT. It has also become the near universal first step for JEE holders since then. So the reason why we are talking all these things is 3 reasons, right? One is the brain drain. The best of the students, 1.5 million students take the examination to get, and you actually have one topper. And what we did was we chatted out that topper's journey of how they're working and what they're working. And what we noticed is almost 3 in 4 toppers are based out of India. Almost 4.5 or 4 out of 5 toppers are working for not for Indian company, for outside the company. Not working for a company based out of, founded in India, but working for a company which is founded outside of India. So they're working for a foreign company. And more importantly, increasingly, before 2000, people were choosing academics and research, so they were also getting into research. But post 2000, people are choosing to get into a career and move up the ladder through the career path itself. Very few even pursue a master's program also. And most importantly, the preferred institution that they go for is Stanford and MIT and then Harvard, and that's how it goes and nothing else. And every student who wanted to pursue a master's program, 19 of them, have moved out of India to pursue their master's program also. So they did the undergrad here but finished their master's and PhD outside of India. This is the report card for the JEE Toppers in India, and you can also in a sense extrapolate that to be the report card for how the JEE toppers actually, given an option, given a choice, how do they make those choices is something very, very clear for us, that if they have a choice to pursue masters and if they get into a good institution outside of India, they'll first choose that. If they get a good company which pays them a lot of money, they'll choose that. And of course, there is nothing wrong about that. I'm not passing a judgment about these things, but we should be very clear about what are we creating. We are talking of 1.5 million people and a few people getting selected to, into IITs, and how do they contribute to the national growth, and that's a debate that is well worth having at some point in time, but very important for us to understand what we are doing with the IITs and what we are doing with the master's programs and research programs, because very clearly all the students seem to be gravitating towards going out of India if they want to pursue any master's or research program. I hope this helps. Thank you so much. Namaste.